tell you about the exiles. You see, normally they don't let me do this kind of thing on account of my mouth running where it ain't supposed to, and I'm just so excited. I think I might wet my britches. Uh-oh. Okay, y'all know about the Dominion, right? Well, them bastards like to cause trouble. If they ain't starting a war on your planet, then they're probably blockading it with their starships or ravaging it with their freaking machines. Anyway, since a bunch of us got run off our home worlds, we figured it'd be a good idea to join forces, and that's how the exiles came to be. The end. Huh? You want me to keep going? Okay. You asked for it. Let me tell you about us. Humans, that is. We are stubborn folk. Ain't the kind to back down from a fight. And no, we ain't inbred. Most of us, anyway.
Come on.
Then there's the Orin. You might call them scrappy. Protectors of nature and the like. They also got these big furry ears and tails. Some people are into that. Yeah, I know. Weird. These folks here, well, it might be best if we just don't talk about them. Finally, we got the Braddock. They're big, tough, giant rock people. I mean, they are badass. Of course, most of them got more boulders and brains. Yep, that means just what it sounds like. I'm sure you know about the planet Nexus. Well, one of us exiles found it. And now we're all heading there to make it our new home. Trouble is, the Dominion showed up and they're trying to take it from us. You know what I say? Those stiff-necked, meat-bending bastards want to fight? Then bring it on! Oops, you okay? I think that went pretty well, right?
Peggy 12.
Hello there. It appears that it has fallen to me to tell you about the Dominion. And as your luck would have it, I am by far the most qualified individual to do so. Shall we begin? About 1,600 years ago, the humans of planet Cassus were chosen by the Elden to establish a star-spanning empire. And since that time, through intimidation, political intrigue, and a score of impressive military conquests, the Dominion now exists as a shining example of strength and leadership for the rest of the pathetic vermin that infest the galaxy. Enough history. To the heroes of the Empire! The Dragon. Savage warriors. Fearless on the field of battle. Not exactly the most refined chaps. But I wouldn't say that to their face. Mechari. Advanced robots engineered by the Elden themselves. Deadly assassins and super agents. A sense of humor? A bit lacking, I'm afraid. And not going to talk about this one. Lastly, there are the Cassians. My people. Without whose continued courageousness, ambition, and stalwart leadership, the Dominion would undoubtedly crumble. I suppose I would be remiss if I did not mention the ongoing conflict with the so-called exiles on planet Nexus. And not to say that this ragtag alliance of refugees, rebels, and mercenaries poses any real threat. They just need a healthy dose of Dominion galactic diplomacy. Have I made myself clear? Good. I certainly hope so. Can someone get me a drink? Something expensive.
Welcome to Wildstar. This is DevSpeak. Disclaimer time. This series is about getting into the nitty-gritty of Wildstar. That said, we're going to start with something you might not expect. It's one of our core features, housing. Let's start at the beginning. How do you get a house? Well, just find yourself a Protostar housing specialist. You'll see them pretty early on. Bring some cash and you are G2G. They'll send you straight to your sky plot to start building. You'll want to clear off any, shall we say, undesirables. Oh, what up? You can stay. First, you can build a little campsite. Then you'll get a starter home. Eventually, you can buy some pretty crazy domiciles. Once it's built, you can customize and decorate the hell out of it. And really, you can do anything. I mean, inside, outside, walls, roofs, doors, windows, wallpaper, furniture, it's all fair game. Put a floating chair and an upside-down table. See if I care. But housing in Wildstar isn't this isolated secondary feature. It's actually woven into your entire gameplay experience. You'll find items for your house all over the game, from random drops to quest rewards to crafting. It will become your home base, and a place that provides you with a myriad of conveniences.
Connected.
An easy example? Logging off in your house grants you more rest XP
Channel
than
switched.
anywhere else. More cool items in your house? More rest XP. Remember how I said you can decorate the outside of your house? Well, you can actually construct buildings and facilities. We call them plugs. They fit into spots on your land called sockets. This is where the real action happens. Like to cook? Build a garden to harvest ingredients. Need some more? Build a mine. Can't bring the deeps? Practice on a target dummy. Tired of facing that mob of players around the public workbench? Build your own and craft in peace. Your plugs will give you daily quests, resources, and more. But they do take some time to build up. Don't worry, because you can teleport to your house anytime from anywhere. Housing is also a little bit of a social scene. Set your plot to allow your friends and neighbors to visit, or open it up to the public. It's not just about showing off. You'll be looking at some serious perks. Can't log on for a week? Get a buddy to maintain your garden, and they'll get a portion of the reward. Bandits raiding your neighbor's property? Lend a helping hand, gun, or sword, and earn yourself some bounty. Hardcore raider? How about a personal raid portal? With a buff.
Disconnected.
This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. We are making a big effort to make player housing a major part of the game, and I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy it as much as I do. Well, maybe not as much as I do. This is only the tip of the iceberg for housing, but that's all I can show you for now. If you want more info, you can hit us up here or here. Remember, the devs are listening.
The devs are listening. Yeah, guys, I'm just playing some stuff in the background right now. Until we wait till this bad boy gets going.
This Game Breaker gameplay is brought to you by the Settler and Scientist paths, which are just being fully revealed today. So, I'm going to share with you my individual gameplay. Most of it's...
Let's just look at the pretty stuff. Can I stream in 720 and watch in 720?
Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. We're about to begin, so if you can all just settle down and get ready to go. Alrighty, so first off, I'd like to thank you all for joining us here this evening for the first ever Wildstar Townhall. Super excited. Before we go any farther, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce our volunteer moderators for the evening. I'll start with myself. So I'm Nixus. Some of you already know me. Those of you who do not, I am a member of Subterfuge Vanguard and the corner guy on Late Night Dominion. Next, we've got Pseudonym.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Pseudonym, proud member of Enigma and EU Guild. My job here tonight is to help ensure that everyone gets a chance to speak up on whatever topics we bring up. So, if you wish to speak on a topic, please make certain that you right-click on my name and send me a private message through TeamSpeak. I will be adding everyone to a queue to speak in the order that I receive your messages. So, if you happen to be worried about me or someone mispronouncing your name or your organization's name or anything else like that, go ahead and include a phonetic spelling so that when we do bring you up to queue, we can actually pronounce it properly. But yes, here's to hoping we have a fantastic town hall.
How's everybody doing? This is Vuxy here at WildstarPvP.com, Wildcast, and Mog Nation. I'm going to be announcing what people have to say tonight, and I'm also going to go through the queue top to bottom from everybody that's lined up with their questions, and I want everybody to stay on topic tonight. It's probably my main goal. All right, nice to meet y'all.
Perfect. Thank you for introducing yourself. So as you may have already read on the thread, the purpose of this event is primarily to bring you all together, so the organizations across the Wildstar community, to talk about new guilds, fan sites, events, the game, and a bunch more. You're welcome to stream this event or even record it. We actually highly encourage it, and also to have you share it with those who aren't here with us tonight on TeamSpeak. I just quickly want to enforce that we will not allow you to be breaking any NDA. So if you do, we'll have to kindly ask you to, be removed from the conversation. That's kind of a zero tolerance thing. On a side note, this is brand new to a lot of us, so please bear with us during this event. If you want to give us any feedback, we'll be providing a suggestion box at the end of the event, and don't hesitate to tell us what you think. And with that said, let's go ahead and start by having everybody introduce themselves. Our first topic of discussion will be community events. So if you wish to queue yourself up while we're doing introductions, please send a message to Pseudonym, and we'll go ahead and start at the top of the list and move our way down. Shadow?
Hi everybody, I'm Shadowed Sin, leader of the Black Sky, a rough riding for the Dominion, and a motorcycle roleplay guild set up for Wildstar.
Wonderful. Tib? All right. Durus, introduce yourself. Hello.
Hey there.
Hi.
Just a little slow to the game. My name is Durus. I'm a member of LA.des, one of the gaming communities out here on the internet, and I am an officer in that gaming community, and we're primarily a fan-based guild based around a variety of podcasters. It started up February of 2007, and we play pretty much a lot of MMOs.
Wonderful. Clap.
We're just a group of friends, mostly that have a TeamSpeak server and play lots of different games, and we're really keen for Wildstar.
Wonderful, thank you. Saber.
I'm Saber. I'm the leader of Breakdown Gaming. Yeah, basically, group of friends. Play lots of LOL, keen for Wildstar.
Nice to have you. MMO Papa.
Yeah, I'm Papa. I'm here to represent the crafting community of WildStar. Basically, the 10 to 15% that Jeremy Gaffney was talking about when he said hardcore crafters.
Great. Hex, go ahead.
I'm Hex representing Goshkia. We are a casual gaming community and we have a core of people interested in WildStar, so we're primarily information gathering at this stage.
Thank you very much. Mikey D.
Same thing as Hex. We're here to find more about the game and see if it's going to fit some of our social gaming network that we have here at Koshkia.
Thank you. Datix, you're up.
Hey guys, it's Datix from Mission Nexus here with Demichi. We run a fan site kind of reporting on the news and our take on WildStar and MMOs, as well as the Mission Nexus podcast. So looking forward to the conversation tonight.
Wonderful, as are we. Go ahead, Dimitri.
This is Dimitri. I'm here with my lovely wife, Chrissy. She is also with us on Missions Nexus, and we are excited to learn from everyone in the community tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Avid Guru.
Hi, I'm Avid Guru. I'm the guild leader for the WildStar chapter of Mog Nation. We're a large multi-game guild family that's been together for a couple years now. And we have players interested in all the various aspects and nooks and crannies of WildStar, and we're really excited about this game. We're also the home of Mog Radio, and I will let JB talk a little bit more about that.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, JB.
Hey guys, it's JB from Wildcast. I'm here representing MogNation.com, our podcasting network, and the multi-gaming community, like Avid said, Mog Nation.
Thank you. Go ahead, Gray.
Everybody hearing me?
Yes.
All right, I'm Gray. I'm known for my strength, integrity, and intelligence. And you may listen to my podcast, Nexus Weekly, over at WildStar Central.
Perfect. Pseudo.
Hey guys, I'm Gray's better half on Nexus Weekly, so that's what I do. That's all.
Thank you. Go ahead, Brenner.
Good evening, folks. I'm Brenner from the Skull and Cassian, the WildStar role-playing blog, along with my brainchild, Agent Hawkins. And I'm also representing WildStar Roleplay tonight. Unfortunately, Patricia and Ender had some really bad net issues, so they will not be able to come tonight.
That's unfortunate, but thank you for joining us. Blank space.
Oh, let's try that again. Can you hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear.
Hi, my name is Blank Space. I am the leader of Subterfuge Vanguard. We are a hardcore PvX guild, and we have a little podcast that we do.
Perfect, thank you. Phoenix, go ahead.
Hey guys, I'm Phoenix. I'm an officer of Subterfuge Vanguard.
Thank you, Phoenix. Go ahead, Ewan.
No, it's Gaiowin.
Excuse me.
No problem, it's always done that way. This is Gaiowin from alttabney.com. We're a community gaming site built on community before guild. You can catch our podcasts that we're starting to run out now, but with the heavy competition, we're trying not to compete too hard.
Wonderful, thank you. Go ahead, Zachus.
Hey guys, this is Zachus. Same deal as Guywan from AltTabMe, our little community, multiple games. I'll also be heading up our war plot section coming to Wildstar.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Welcome
Silvers?
to Wildstar. This is DevSpeak.
Hey, I'm leader of Veracity, and we're just a small group that plays just about everything.
Perfect. Thank you for joining us. Zap Robo.
Hi, this is Zap. I'm the admin over at Wildstar Central, the first Wildstar fan site. And yeah, looking forward to this.
Thank you for joining us. Yaxan?
Hi, I'm Yaxan. I'm the guy they always see or not see me deleting posts on Wildstar Central because you guys are always so naughty. Well, actually, not always. You are also great. And thanks for letting me be here.
Thank you, Yaxan. Charles, go up.
I am here with Wildstar Hub. It's actually the baby and brainchild of Carla, so we'll let her talk about it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Carla.
Hello, like Charles said, I'm with Wildstar Hub, the one who started the fan site, and pretty much I want a place for everyone to easily find links to all the other Wildstar goodness out there.
Thank you very much. Renee's?
Hi, I'm Renes, the mysterious hidden third founder of Wildstar Roleplaying. I was meant to be for the European meeting, but I'm going to try and get Pat and Ender in on that instead.
Wonderful. Thank you for joining us. Lethality. Who seems to be AFK, so... Gazmanov? Excuse me.
Hi there, I am Gazimov. I'm one of the guys who writes for Zam.com, and here because both Lethality and I have been following Wildstar from a very early age, and we're very keen on being part of the community.
Thanks for joining us. Gentle Star?
Hi everyone, I'm a member of Wildstar Central and I just wanted to be a part of the first town hall, so thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Technol.
Hi, I'm Technol.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Alrighty, so that was introductions for those that were joining us on TeamSpeak tonight. We'll go ahead and start with our first topic of the night, which, as I mentioned earlier, will be community events. And I'll pass it over to Pseudonym.
All right. Okay, well, first up for tonight, we have Zap Robo, who would like to speak about community events. So, Foxy, if you wouldn't mind.
All right.
It's okay. I took care of it. There you go, Zap Robo. Start us
There
off.
I am. Yeah, in terms of community events from Wildstar Central's end, we'd really like to know what we can provide or do for guilds and other organizations on Central to help facilitate that. What would be useful from your guys' perspective? I mean, in my head, I've got ideas along the lines of having a calendar where you can put your events up on Central, support for live streaming on the site, but really, Wildstar Central is your community site, and I want to know what you want us to support.
Perfect. Thank you, Zap. If you wish to make a comment, please send a message to Pseudo and we'll grant you talk power.
Yes. Oh, and make certain you send it to the right pseudo. There's pseudonym, which is myself, and pseudo, which is a different person altogether.
And trust us, you don't want to send it to Pseudo.
Okay. Avid Guru would like to speak, so have at it, Avid.
Hey, so one thing that I think would be great for community events is also some place where people can show off community events that have already happened. I think it's really good, assuming that we'll have several different servers running, for people to look over at something that happened on another server and see how it worked, and if it's the sort of event that worked well, to be able to bring that into the community on their own server.
You still have the ability to talk, Saprobo, so feel free to go on considering you brought this forth.
Sure. So I was just looking at my mic levels. So when you're saying that, Avid, what are you talking about? Some form of ability to record video, server forum? What are you looking for there, as it were?
Well, it might simply just be a sub forum for people to sort of brag their events a little bit, and show them off. Maybe even trade ideas for events, talk about what worked well, what didn't work well, and sort of maybe help other people set up their own events. There's certainly people in this community that have run community events in other games and have a lot of experience at it, and there may be people who want to get into running this sort of event but haven't done it before, and it'd be nice if they had someplace they could go, look, see how it was done, maybe even find a mentor.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. One thing we are doing with Central is we're trying to keep the number of superfluous forums down at the moment. So stuff that really is only needed with live, like server forums, etc., aren't being put in yet. You'll notice that there's a lack of a PvP forum, a lack of a crafting forum. Those things will come in time, but we're ramping up the site to support what the community discussions are currently revolving around. So absolutely, a events forum is certainly something we can consider once we get to the stage where people can mass run events, where it'll need its own forum. For now, if you have an event you want to run, it's perfectly welcome in the general forum.
Sounds good.
Perfect. Thank you. Avid, do you have any more comments to make?
That's it for right now.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. If you wish to expand on anything you've heard here so far, feel free to send Pseudonym a message.
Okay, we have Blank Space who would like to make mention of something.
Test.
We hear you.
Roger, roger.
One of the things I wanted to say is for Wildstar Central and any sort of integration for the future, I feel that there are a lot of websites and organizations that are coming out with their, like a warplots.com, where you're going to find content being generated there. And I like having the Wildstar Central being a central place where you go to find out all that information. So when it comes to, like, seeing streams highlighted on Wildstar Central, it sounds cool, but I'd rather continue, I like to continue seeing Wildstar Central be that central place where you can go to find where all those specializations are. That's all I wanted to say about that.
Sure, and currently, if you go to the main forum, there's a fan site listing. War plots and various other fan sites are listed off the back of Central. In terms of highlighting streams, for instance, we'll just be looking for anyone like on Twitch TV playing Wildstar. Other sites will be perfectly welcome to use our calendar, perfectly welcome to set up their own. I can certainly talk with maybe on a later town hall when we're kind of further down the line and we can look at kind of cross-pollination, as it were.
Sounds great to me. Thank you for the floor.
Thank you, blank space.
Did anyone else wish to speak up before we move on? Yes, we have Yaxan who would like to speak up now.
I'd just like to mention, me being part of Walser Central and just like a sort of general appeal to the community is that, like Zap saying, he's asking for people, how we can help you. But one thing I'd like to appeal is like, if there's anything you feel you can contribute to us directly, like if you're interested in editing the wiki, just help yourself doing that, or if you feel like really want to make a suggestion, it's like, oh, the FAQ is really bad, you should change it, or you should add these things, just don't hesitate to talk to us, or even come with new ideas. Like one idea I saw was with speculation threads and making a FAQ so people don't keep regurgitating the same things. But it's we're all open to you helping us improve it. So that's generally what I was wanted to get out there.
Yeah, certainly. And anyone who's listening to this town hall from any of the recordings, we have a feedback and suggestions forum on Central. Post away. I'll tell you what the feasibility of us doing any of these things are. Excuse me.
We also have MMO Papa who would like to speak up on this as well. You have the floor.
You know what the accent just touched on. I just wanted to kind of insinuate a different idea. Where you have your weekly podcast, perhaps you could have one guest appearance from one of your many members. I mean, you have like 7,000 members. You probably see what one of them.
Sure. The podcast on Central Nexus Weekly is run by its own crew. I don't know if Sudo or Gray want to step up and answer to that.
It looks like Gray would like to speak on this one.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the initial goals I had, and one of the big reasons why Zap and I talked it out and kind of joined into one. The dream is to give just about anybody that wants to talk and find themselves interesting enough to talk. So if someone wants to PM me and say, hey, I'd like to showcase my guild for 10 minutes or hang out, talk about whatever they want, all the power to them. We will certainly talk it out and get something worked out.
Perfect, thank you.
Sudo would also like to say something as well. You have the floor.
Awesome, thanks. This was actually something that we were talking about as well. Gray and I and Azuri are all in pretty much constant communication. And we were talking actually about having a segment on the Nexus Weekly podcast, basically talking about just kind of like a showcase for various guilds and websites. So that's kind of something that we're doing right now. It's something that we're probably going to expand in the future, because that's obviously something that we really care about, is giving people the time of day to be able to showcase what they love to do. So that's definitely something that we're going to be looking more to in the future.
Perfect, thank you.
No one else has made contact in regards to this to me?
Alrighty then. If you have any last minute comments, this would be the time to make them. Otherwise, we'll start transitioning over to our next topic for this evening. Just to give you a little heads up, we'll probably be talking about housing, so feel free to elaborate as much as you want on this topic. Again, if you want to make a comment, send a message to Pseudonym. Now, just before you move on, do any of those who currently have the floor wish to make any last comments? Very well. Perfect. So thank you very much. Let's move on now. So housing.
Yes, I've had no one speak up who wishes to talk about housing, especially it's a really big, interesting topic. In particular, we're making these topics incredibly general, so if you've got something you wish to discuss about in housing in any way, shape, or form, from the colors you wish they'd include in the palette for your personal house to whatever, it's up to you. It's your floor. Okay. MMO Papa would like to speak up and start us off in housing.
Got the floor.
I figured I'd break the ice with Fab Kit.
I think you cut off.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Like in certain releases recently, it's been talking about settler Fab Kits and how completing their quest lines will grant you certain Fab Kits. Well, I was kind of wondering, think that other other paths will be able to grant Fab Kits. Like I don't really see so much leeway for a soldier path to give Fab Kits, as soldier seems more runty, armor, weapon, kind of.
Datix would like to respond to you.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that I think what we saw in the patch notes that they've released is not path related. I think they referred to the architect, which looks to be a crafting skill. So I don't know that it's necessarily paths that will be creating the Fab Kits. It's a specific crafting skill, is what I believe.
That's true as well. The architect will be able to craft things for housing, but in one of the releases they did say that one of the rewards for being a settler is going to be things for your.
Oh, okay. I must have missed that part, but yeah, that's an interesting point. It would make it almost a little bit tempting to want to go and pick that path solely because you feel you'd be missing out on something. So that's a good point.
Gentle Star, you'd like to speak? You have the floor.
My main thing with the housing, like I know I want to play and explore, I'm just hoping that I can go explore a faraway mountain and find like a special flower or something that only I can grow on my farm or on my settlement. I just hope that something like that's unique to each area.
Mikey D would also like to speak up. You have the floor.
Thank you. I had a question regarding housing. I heard some crazy things from the devs talking about building a roller coaster and other stuff. I don't know if we'll get back to them, but some of the ideas and the thoughts they had about monsters cropping up in your plants and other stuff you have in your housing. One of the kind of fun things that is kind of frequent today in getting into social networking and media is your Castle TD games that you have in there. I was wondering if they would do some type of crazy integration with, you could have your housing as a Castle TD people can play on in-game and on the phone or something crazy like that. Has that ever been discussed or brought up before?
Before we have a response, Shadowson would like to participate in this, so I'm going to go ahead and let him have access to the floor. And probably going to totally mispronounce your name, but Nyanya would also like to speak as well. So I'll let you guys continue your conversation.
Thank you. It's Nyonya. You were very close. I'm just curious about. Oh, sorry. player player banners, maybe guild banners, artwork that we could possibly use within our housing communities, we want to call them, because obviously we're going to be able to invite other people, have raid groups meet up in your house and port to raids, whatnot. And I was just considering maybe somebody had already thought about being able to import our guild icon, whatever, to make a banner within our homes. I just thought that would be a cool idea.
One thing I'm really interested in is... Sorry. Should I continue?
Go ahead, Shadowed Sin.
Well, as I mentioned, I run a biker gang, and we're actually going to be featuring active in-character businesses for each side. And one thing I'm really interested in is their permission system, because I want the ability that if someone's going to troll, I want the ability to have a blacklist mission group and then link it so other people can pop in the bar and hang out, you know, because it's going to be a real bar that we run. So I want to know more about the permission system. Is it robust, or is it just like friend, guild, blah, blah, blah?
Blank Space would also like to speak up on, I believe, icons.
Yes, thank you. We had a discussion about this during one of our podcasts, and my position on being able to take outside icons and put them into a game is the what they call it, the penis metaphor, where if you allow people to put an icon in a game, everything will become a penis. Just something that I've always brought up when this is something that you can add into a game. But other than that, I don't have any real concerns about that. So, thank you.
Actually, just a quick thing, Blank Space. I once said to one of the members of Guild Wars 2 that when they were designing their cash shop, I told them that they charged like $50 for a guild to send them an icon and put it in for that guild to use. They would make so much money. They never did it. Now, if Carbide did something like that, even $100 just for us to send them an image and they can check it whatever, that'd be a great way for them to get money, but also for you to get your icon into your guild, especially if you have like a professional artist that's made a pretty badass icon for your guild.
I think, if I may, I think that's a wonderful idea, and I would definitely love to have that put forward to Carbine to consider as part of their payment models for stuff. If guilds were able, or organizations were able to access being able to set up their own icon, like something like that, whether it's your war party or your guild or your circle, I think that would be unique and definitely profitable for them. So I think that's great.
Avid Guru would like to bring up another topic about housing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I know that they've mentioned something about this already. I'm really excited about the ability to have somebody come in and decorate my house, basically, you know, pay a friend or just have them come in and be an interior decorator and just let them loose. I think that, you know, I'm hoping for, you know, that robust permission system with the housing to allow things like that.
And Zaprobo wants to be hooked up as well.
Yeah, I just want to come up based on the custom logo idea. I've seen in previous games where you've been able to reserve a logo, and I know in Star Trek Online you could even design a logo with some in-game tools. The issue I can see with the whole uploading of a logo and having it reviewed, I know games like EVE Online do it, where they kind of then stylize it to fit the game, but you're talking, especially with the numbers that I think Wildstar are going for, it's a major moderation headache and a bandwidth cost, really. The more icons that make it in the game, the bigger the game client becomes, etc., etc. I know how much Wildstar Central cost me to run. I perish the thought of what it will cost Carbine additionally to do this. I think it's a great idea, but it really does have its pitfalls.
Yaxan would also like to comment on housing.
Related to the topic we were talking about, this is a kind of like a more overarching thing, not just housing, but housing involved with it. One of the things that I'd like to see more is increased strength in community policing. And what I mean by that is the ability for the community to police itself in some way. You know, like, you know, is like one example is that is just players reporting. You know, for example, of course, there always will have to be some sort of GM oversight, but, you know, I'd like to see kind of returned things like community volunteers for example, Anakin Lines, Arc, Advisors of Ruby Kai kind of thing. But with that, with the housing locals, have the volunteers be able to oversee that kind of stuff. But this, it's just it's just an idea. This is beyond housing, but it could touch upon housing and these logos that you're speaking of.
That was actually a suggestion purported by Extra Credits a while ago. They suggested that when it came to dealing with people, you tie in a like system to guilds, and that way guilds would actually be serious about their rule sets and would remove trolls to keep good standing with the community. Sorry for cutting you off.
It's okay, but I could further elaborate, but this will go outside the scope of the topic. But if we get into like social systems, I'd definitely like to talk more about the idea later.
Absolutely. No, would like to pipe in as well.
On the subject of the guild emblems and posting emblems in your housing, they could just do something simple like Guild Wars 2 did, where they have a set amount of icons or symbols, and you can change the colors and background colors and everything. So it won't be exactly your particular guild's emblem that you have on your website or whatever, but it'll be something you could use in-game as well without having to worry about penises everywhere.
Yeah, one similar system that I really liked was the Warhammer Online system, where as your guild leveled up, you're able to add more and more to your guild banner. And the sigils were actually reservable. Once your guild got it, it locked it out from other guilds on your faction from taking it.
Guy Owen would also like to chime in.
Yes, I just wanted to bring about, I know many people are looking forward to the decorating system, but as people that aren't into the decorating system, I really want the balance for the metagame to be, balanced. I know I'll be personally looking at maximizing any benefit I can get out of the housing system more so than making it look cool. So I just want that to be kind of a priority, just seeing to, is it going to be overpowered? Is it going to be underpowered? Are people going to feel that making a decorated, cool house is going to be as beneficial as the person that has bare necessities but has most overpowered system as possible? Or economy-based or power-based or rest of XP-based, speed-based,
Are you talking more about somebody uses all their sockets on their plot to put in all gardens, for example, and they just farm rare materials? I think they've only said you can only have like one of each type of thing.
But even so, with the buffing mechanic that they've talked about, or even the ability of someone else going in and getting a portion, is that taken right off of the crop 100%? Is the person getting, the person that built the farm have 100% and then another person's getting 20% on top of it? I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways that if the system's in place to do it, I already know that people will take advantage of these systems, so I just want to check the balances.
Most of them is just, it's mainly you give permission to, if you have a friend who wants to farm as well, or doesn't have a farm plot built yet, you can give him access to your garden so he can farm for materials and stuff, and he gets whatever he destroys.
For some reason I remember that being said in one of the housing, I believe it was the dev speak, that they get a portion of what it was. They don't get to take the full amount. They take a portion, you get the portion as well. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
I don't mean to backtrack, but I wanted to touch on the topic that Neonia brought up, and then the suggestion that Shadowson brought up, where somebody would pay a certain amount and then be able to implement something graphically. That's actually been done currently by the action role-playing game Path of Exiles by Grinding Gear Games, where you can pay X amount, and I think they're called Diamond Supporter, and you can have your own little thing put into the game. But however, the price of that is kind of.
Yeah, if there's any way technically that can be implemented, I think there are several guilds that would find that really, really great. But I think that there should also be another system in game, doesn't require any real money transaction or anything, where they can create a logo from existing elements. But I certainly think that if you could get your own logo into the game for your guild's use, that would be very popular.
Renee's would
Yeah,
also
even
like to
if it
chime
just
in.
involved a $15 fee, I imagine that dedicated guilds would definitely pay.
A thing to note also is that APB did something like this. If you watch any of their customization, you even had the ability to basically create a guild tattoo and tattoo your character's entire body with that. Now, I'm not saying we need something that crazy, but I mean, if you just give us like an editor with a few shapes and colors, I mean, I could probably, or one of our artists could probably easily recreate our infamous Malvarine jacket if we needed to.
Renee's, go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering if people had a bit of concern to do. I mean, as a role player, I love the idea of housing, but I'm just wondering if the amount of things that you can have in your house. I'm just wondering if people are worried that it will kind of make the world a little bit more empty, especially in something like a capital city or something like that, where people won't have to line up at crafting stations and things like that.
Well, I imagine for a while, most new players who will mostly be hanging out in the cities won't really have a housing plot yet. So I assume like large guilds, once they have like the raid portals and everything set up, a lot of them will be hanging out at so-and-so's house instead of inside the main cities.
Actually, this is something I wanted to talk about because I played Dark Age Camelot back in the day a lot, and they had a instance housing system not identical to like how WildStar's doing it, but it had many of these similar socket things because there you could have your own crafting stations, for example, or your own bank there. And it was really nice and convenient and all that because I could especially teleport there and everything like that. But then I ended up, and like me retrospect, noticed that I never really went to the city anymore because I never had to. It's nice and all that, but I think there should be some sort of effort involved. This also relates to the raid portals. I think they mentioned it, but I think like that, for example, should be something that should be, rather exclusive and hard to get. So like if you manage to get it, then it's like, it's convenient, but you worked for that. And also have that relate to the crafting, perhaps like a high level crafter sort of perk or some sort of crafter class quest, as it were, that you were that renowned or worked that hard, you managed to unlock a crafting station. So it's like not everyone has it. A lot of people be using the city, but maybe people will come to your house for those kind of perks because exclusivity would promote these kind of hub behaviors, I believe.
Blank Space would like to chime in as well.
We had a very in-depth conversation about the implications of housing, and to keep it as short and concise as I can, I'm not a role player. I have role played in the past. I understand that there are nuances that are really important. When I looked at it from a larger sociological view of groups of people, the things that we looked at were, okay, you still were going to go to town. Perhaps not everybody would be hanging out in Ironforge per se, but the fear that on your house you had these sort of things could become just as big as an attractor, just not on a macro scale. So instead of everyone's hanging out in Ironforge, your guild, your circle, your buddies, whoever, it's up to you as an active community member to reach out to those new players that you see asking for help and bring them onto your plot and show them how things work. So I know it's kind of optimistic of me to look at it like that, but I'm not too afraid of smaller micro sociological circles as I was initially when I first thought about housing, and then, oh, who's going to hang out in Ironforge if all the things that you need to do can be done at your house? That's what I had to say about that.
Hey, I just want to chime in here. As Renee is, I'm also a role player, but I'm also a gamer, and I'm also a sociologist. Actually, I have a social degree when it comes to this kind of thing. The one thing I want to point out is that they have basically said that there is a town value to towns, and we even have role players that are basically planning on rolling in the towns and making them in the hubs. And as someone who basically spent the last 6 months with nothing ever happening outside of Divinity's reach, that is something that's really great. And a really good idea they could also implement is give certain buffs or access that can be given only to certain guilds or groups. Now, if anyone remembers, like, factions, there were 2 main dungeons in Guild Wars 1 factions. And often what would happen is a guild would take over control of that, event, dungeon thing, and they would offer access to it. So if you make it so that people can get some kind of bonus out of sitting in a town, buffing it up, and basically going, oh, look how awesome my guild is, those guilds to come back into those towns and put into it. Because that's what guilds want. They want the rep, they want to wave around the PNARs, and they want the attention. That's how people work in games. So if Carbine does that, you'll even have them sitting in newbie towns, buffing them up, getting attention, and also putting it to the community.
I'll let you go first, sorry.
Yeah, the one thing I was going to mention is that very early on, Carbine were touting the fact that they want to minimize the impact of instances. Housing is an instance. I can well imagine that all these raid portals, crafting benches, etc., have a higher cooldown, that you're less frequently able to use them compared to resources they can place in the city.
I'd like to add on the thing before, and okay, I lost my train of thought. Someone else continue because I lost my train of thought there. Sorry.
No worries. Does anyone else have anything else particular that they want to bring up about housing?
Oh, now I remember. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought. And back in that, it was I really like what you're suggesting there, Shadowson, and I think this could connect to something like some sort of idea that's always been going in my mind for a while. Something to do with it's more social systems, but it could connect to this. Is one thing I would love to see in the game is some sort of not so event, but like an ongoing, updated sort of newsletter, as it were, as for your server specifically. So you could open up and you would have different sections, and one of them could be like, guilds currently in control of, what you said there, like something like that, and people could see that and work as a sort of advertisement, so people become recognized and sought after in that kind of way. But yeah, I could elaborate more on this system and other topics, but I thought that would be kind of a neat addition to this overarching idea I have.
Well, just to quickly pop in here, sorry, one thing. The whole idea behind making the towns interesting is they actually did something like this in Ireland where they challenged everybody throughout the day and country to paint their towns, and they actually got people to clean up their towns. So you do something like that in a game. I mean, if you can get the Irish, who are lovable people, to clean up their towns and paint them something, you do it in game, then you're going to get the players to do some crazy ass stuff and not sit in their instances. Sorry for interjecting there.
No, by all means, this is your discussions. Gray would like to speak in on housing as well.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I hope that there is an underlying point that a house is trying to make in terms of getting you out of the housing area. Incentivize going into a town. Hopefully the house isn't just one big draw to stick you in there and just kind of keep you recluse. I think there should be some features that scream, all right, welcome back, go back out there and go get it, tiger.
Okay. Anything else about housing before we transition into our next topic?
All I'll say basically is I really hope the housing has quite a high cap for people, because I know that there'll be a lot of people throwing like mini community and guild events in their houses. So I hope the cap is at least reasonably large.
Perfect. We've had some really good ideas tossed around so far. Would anybody like to make any last minute comments before we go ahead and transition? Alrighty. Perfect. So, thank you to everyone who participated in the conversation. Our next topic of the evening will be the social aspect to Wildstar. So it kind of ties in with housing. Pseudo?
Yes, in particular, social things, be it get-togethers or anything involving the social part of being in a WildStar MMO. Does anyone at this moment in time wish to have the floor?
I'll take it before you guys revoke mine.
Okay, have at it.
Well, somebody else during my economy thread brought up the fact that they wanted the crafting aspect of the game to be social, where multiple people would get together and contribute to create one item. Personally, I disagree with it, but since I'm representing the whole crafting community, I thought I would bring that up and see what y'all.
I think you cut off at the end there.
I just wanted to see what everybody else would.
Okay, and Blank would also like to speak as well.
Mine is over a separate topic. It has to deal with the different layers of social, incentivizing the different layers of being social. So whether you're in a social circle, and then a guild, playing together as a guild, and then doing war plots, because I am mostly focused on PvP. So I'd like to table that until after the conversation about crafting stuff, if you don't mind.
Not a problem. We do have a section coming up for crafting and a section for PvP as well, but this is more absolutely feel free to say whatever you like. And in this particular case, Shadoutson would like to have the floor for a moment.
I was just going to comment. Sorry.
And by all means, comment away.
We're doing social systems, right?
Absolutely.
Then the only thing I'm asking is if they develop a guild system, it needs to be a lot more serious than what we saw in Guild Wars 2, because they just got so flaky with people popping back and forth. I couldn't even tell who the last time someone logged in or left. So when I went to purge my rosters, I had to send out mass email. We didn't even have a mass email system, so it took me 3 hours to remove 25 people from a 100 plus member guild. So please, Carbine, robust guild system.
Gadzimov would also like to have the floor.
Hi there. So I think that whatever kind of social systems are in place, I think we've heard a lot about the mechanics, be it guilds, be it circles. But I'm also interested on the reasons that people are going to have for actually wanting to socialize with other people. We've heard from the housing section a bit earlier about the concerns people have about people becoming virtual hermits within their own house. I think that's a valid concern. I'd like to understand what kind of social impetus people are going to have beyond kind of forming a raiding guild, forming a war party. If you're going to have crafting people band together to try and form crafting alliances and corner parts of the market. If you're going to have PvP patrols going out into the open world to try and reinforce parts of White Vale. If you're going to have communities trying to socially group together to ensure that towns are fortified and that settlers keep buildings maintained there. I think those are kind of the bigger concerns I have, to try and get people to either socialize because they have a reason to, or potentially spawn off that spontaneous socialization where they move outside their own groups and circles. So that's pretty much my concern, and I don't think we have a complete idea on that yet.
Okay. Well, did anyone wish to comment on anything that was brought up by the four who are here currently? And yes. Certainly, Brenner. Give me 1 second. Brenner would now like the floor as well.
Yeah, actually, for especially those of us in the role-playing community, the social aspect of this game is possibly one of the most critical aspects for us. Because in any game, that's how we survive. We network with each other, we network to do, like you mentioned, things like PvP, patrols of the land, or perhaps you do some sort of outreach to new members, maybe in the beginner zones. You go in, talk to them, introduce yourselves. It's these types of things that we want to network, but not even just with our community in the role-playing, but also with the rest of the community, because we don't want to just become these exclusive shut-ins. We want to reach out to other people to find things that we can all do together, things that are community events that include all sorts of people from all sorts of interests. And so far, we've been really impressed with some of the stuff that Carbine's given us towards that, such as social circles, so that we don't have to be quite as exclusive, just to ensure the fact that we can connect with people of similar interests.
Saber070 would like to speak as well.
I believe the original point of the discussion was that the crafting would have to be done with multiple people at the same time, which is what I didn't like. Whereas I would much rather have a lot of individual crafters, so if you are working together, you can basically like work together. But if you're not working together, then you can outsource it, like off the auction house.
I personally felt the same about that, but they didn't share the same incentives. They actually wanted the people to be present. You know, kind of like, I don't know, a powwow circle.
I think that if you've got a market that works like that, where if you just want to buy the, say if you've got some guys going out and mining and creating basic widgets, and you would then want to buy those widgets off a marketplace or trading post to turn into something a bit special, like a hover bike or something like that, then I think that's cool. But if you've got a kind of cartel that's formed that's like Granok Hover Bikes Incorporated, that goes out, mines the material, creates the widgets, and then churns out hover bikes with custom paint jobs, then even though you might be doing something that's that might be suitable for you as an individual crafter, that's fantastic. But these guys are going to probably undercut you because they're a bit more efficient, and if they've got their a bit of role playing now, then they'll throw in a bit of banter. They might even have a hover bike lot where you can go up and pick which bike you want and stuff like that. So I think it's possible to cater for both groups, but I do like the idea of being able to potentially form the cartels, crafting groups, syndicates, that kind of stuff from it.
I don't know if you guys remember, but like during the Karka event, well, during the upcoming Karka event of Guild Wars 2, a lot of people had to kind of work together to build that siege machine that was going to fire at the Karka. That I could see happening, like what you mentioned, a motorbike or a hover bike. Working together, build something large scale, that would actually be pretty cool. But what he was talking about was like working together to build a regular item, but legendary or epic. I think that's kind of anticlimactic.
Blank would like to chime in.
I was supposed to quickly cut in here for blankets in here. The one thing that really got me when Gazimov was mentioned is that there are a lot of people who go into like the whole Game of Thrones thing, and also, but they will actually create like in-game trading companies, and if you could actually let them craft together and then undercut each other, I mean, look at Eve. I don't want to bring this up, but Eve has natural RPing because you can do this stuff. And they just roleplay because they're actually doing it. So you know what? I say let people mass produce bikes. If their bikes are shitty, well then they won't sell.
Onres from Settler in Exile would like to chime in as well. Are you still there?
I do believe Blank wanted to say something.
Oh, yes, I do apologize. For some reason, I thought Blank got a chance to speak. I do apologize. Continue.
It's fine. Thank you. What I wanted to say was in the system of putting crafters all together, you know, you need someone who works with iron, someone who works with this to get together and make some legendary item. I don't actually have an objective opinion on it. It just feels weird, so I gotta say no thank you. And when it comes to cartels of people who get together and craft bikes and they want to be the auction house, PvPers, I say, go for it. I have no problem with that at all. So when that comes, for Wildstar, go for it. But if we're gonna let groups of people get together to create really, really cool things, I don't know. For some reason, that just doesn't set right with me. On the social aspect, there was somebody from the stream chat that wanted to make sure that while we were talking about social things, that Carbine also heard that the game community loves having achievements and titles. So if nobody else brought it up, I just did. Thank you for the floor.
Okay, and going back to you on Rez, go ahead.
Alrighty.
Does seem. Hi, everybody. It seems to me that from an immersion standpoint, large groups of crafters getting together makes more sense than one person building walls, one person building a tank. So I understand the concept of 10 crafters setting up a process to make 100 guns. Yeah, that sounds maybe to me a little different than 10 crafters getting together to work on a war plot wall or white, or PvP area. And because there's 10 people with 10 committed amount of effort, it goes up 5 times faster. It's just a different point of view.
And go ahead, MMO Papa.
See, I had the same ideas, but unfortunately, they've already said that they don't want crafters having advantageous stances in the war plot piece.
Anyone else wish to chime in on any type of social aspect within Wildstar? Yes, Yaxan, go right ahead. You have the floor.
All right, I'll try to do this one at a time and let people interject first, because I actually wrote a list while listening. I'll start with one of the simpler ones, and that'll be, related to social, would be naming systems. Like, I guess if we just pretty much bring back the forum topics about it, is, I personally, as we know, Wildstar, they currently have that it's a single name, and it has, just standard characters and numbers. And they haven't mentioned at all if they're going to have any sort of other naming system. And I just want to say that I hope they would do either something more like Anarchy Online and Secret World, where the name you all know, the pseudonym or nickname is the same, but you had optional first names and last names. Oh, at least in Anarchy Online it was optional, the first name and last name. But I know in the Secret World that was required. But something like that would be cool. But I think in terms of the kind of game that Wildstar might be, if you kind of relate it to other theme park MMOs like WoW or Lord of the Rings and Dark Age Camelot, have it be like Lord of the Rings and Dark Age Camelot, where the name that you write down, the nickname, that's always the same, but then there's a cosmetic last name you can buy for 10 silver after you reach a certain level. And it has no effects on any systems like tells or friends list, but that would apply, that would be a cosmetic, for the nameplate.
Before going on to your next particular topic, MMO Papa wanted to say something.
I did.
Oh, yeah, I got a message from you saying yes, you did. You wanted to chime in.
Oh,
Okay.
no, that was before he said what I would need to say.
Okay, fair enough. Nyaya?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that I think a lot of role players would agree that a very extensive list of emotes would kind of be awesome in the game. And also, speaking of the I know they mentioned a Winterfest extravaganza that they would be having in the game. I don't know if there was going to be any sort of season festivals or Wildstar lore holiday kind of festivals in the game, but that would be awesome, and that's always a pretty big social event. And I know a lot of MMOers really enjoy holiday events.
Okay. Do you have another point for us, Yaxan, with your list?
I still have a few. I guess I'll connect more to guilds. One of the things I'd like to see is actually I've never seen this. I think it's believe it's in Terra, but I also have never seen in EverQuest 2 is some sort of say looking for guild or guild registry. So you can be able to pull up a list of guilds that are currently recruiting. You could say sort of like more old school, sort of like server browser-esque sort of friend looking for group kind of stuff. And I remember in EverQuest 2, they I believe they had. It's been a while since I played, but they had descriptions and they said if they're active recruiting or like what they're recruiting or current focuses. Something like that would be cool. Not only for individuals looking for a guild, but for guilds looking for other guilds, specifically if they wish to form some sort of alliance, whether it be raiding, war plots, although that'll be like more war party related, but that still applies there. And anything like role playing, just anything like that. I think something like that would be a very valued addition in terms of social systems.
Very awesome. And Zap, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, just wanted to pop up. I know it's being mentioned in the text chat here, but to Neonya's point of the events, there have been both factional and seasonal events also announced. There's a July the 4th analog and an Independence Day kind of analog of Foundation Day if you're in the Dominion faction, or Starfall if you're in the Exile faction. One celebrating the founding of the Dominion, one celebrating the discovery of Nexus. And there's Shades Eve, which is a Halloween analog, which has its own kind of background and lore, which is actually quite creepy. It's all following kind of a plague when the humans first kind of got onto Cassians, got onto Cassus. They were struck down by a plague, and the angel cured them. It's actually a really, really creepy little story. If you kind of search on Central, just do a Google for Shades Eve Wildstar, you'll probably kind of get it up. But yeah, so this is certainly something that they actually addressed in a community uplink way back when. That was probably 2012 or so, where they were talking about events, and it's definitely something Carbine are doing, and those ones that they've announced so far.
Okay, and Yaxon?
Yep. I think connected to the naming thing, like Blankspace mentioning that it was about the names thing, they're saying it's some sort of database issue, which would also apply to what I want to mention next. I hope this is something they should definitely really look into or see if there's some sort of solution, especially in terms of future features that might happen. Hope these issues doesn't apply, because what I want to mention now is something that was discussed actually I think a few months now is in-game biographies, much like you would see with City of Heroes or even Lord of the Rings Online. Something I surprisingly ended up using myself, even though I'm not really a hardcore role player or like to make these backstories. I ended up doing it because it existed in the game. But this is something I would really like to see, supported in game. But it'll most likely will, even if it's not, won't exist in game or, at launch or ever, at least, I know the role playing community is going to be all over that and make an add on for that, because I know that already exists for World of Warcraft. But I just would really like to see it supported first party, as it were. So, people like me then, would discover it, because I personally would have never used it if it was a mod, but because it exists in the game, it ended up becoming something that I'm vouching for right now.
I want to make a comment on that. I think that's awesome, and one of the things for people that are going to watch this on YouTube or people in the channel to remember is excuse me, I was coughing. Even if there aren't, like, let's say something like this doesn't end up happening, with the amount of developers and people that make add-ons and stuff that they're encouraging to be around, it's more than likely that you as a role player may be able to find somebody who is able to make that, even if it isn't an integral part of WildStar. So nonetheless, I still think it's awesome, and it's something they should consider putting in. Even though I'm not a role player, I see that being something that they could easily do, and there are a lot of role players out there who would love to have that. So.
Excellent. And now for certain, MO Papa wants to chime in.
Yeah, this time I actually do. Just to touch on something that ShadowSyn brought up in chat, the social aspect of crafting, where you put in your signature, like you sign an item. That's already been confirmed as of last night, where Bull said that that is on the list of things to do.
And Saber?
Okay, just on Blank Space's topic about how people are going to make add-ons to put into the game. What I would like to see is, like, very common add-ons, like that most people use to be integrated into the game, like after launch. Like, just from the wear perspective, everyone using Deadly Boss mods, like, it should be something that's built into the game.
Sure, the issue you then have there, Saber, is what does the person who kind of took the time out to make that mod get out of it? I'm sure it's something that Carbine's considering, but you don't really want to set up a whole thing where someone creates a really popular mod, and then Carbine goes, oh, that's a good idea, and just kind of bakes it into the client. There needs to be some kind of give and take between the mod community and Carbine, but that's probably for another topic.
Yeah. Working out some, like, a reward for them would be good, but yeah. Even if it's, like, kind of just included in the download and mentioned or something.
Yeah, you see the problem you then get if they include it with a download, then Carbine are implicitly supporting it, because what if that author abandons his add-on and suddenly it's part of the download itself? It's got its own pitfalls, and I don't know if I know anyone else, but I really feel that add-ons is worthy of its entire own kind of category of discussion.
Yeah, true.
Alrighty then. What we're going to do is we're going to transition into our next topic, which in this case is a combination. It's crafting as a whole and the economy, as they're so intermingled together.
Perfect. So if you do wish to make a comment about, the economy, go ahead and send a message to Pseudonym. This is definitely a subject we can elaborate on quite a bit. So, don't be shy. Make the comments you want to make.
Okay, to start off, we have Gazimov.
Okay, so I think when looking at crafting and the economy as a whole, I've got pretty much one interest in how it's going to work, and that's really how much involvement players are going to have in the economy. And I kind of took part in it when we did the WildStar uplink earlier on in the week. My basic question is how much participation are players going to have? And that means if you have players buying most of their stuff from NPCs, then there's not going to be much player involvement in the economy, and prices are going to be fixed by NPCs, and it's not such a big deal. If you're going to have players looting stuff from monsters to get what they want, get what they need, then again, the prices for those items are going to be set by how rare those items are and how long it takes to go out, get them, bring them back to the auction house. I think my main interest is how much of the economy is going to be dedicated to players getting items turning them into usable objects, and then putting those up on the auction house, and how useful those items are going to actually be once they've been created. Are players going to be involved with creating a lot of items that are going to be bought, or are most of our items, particularly when we get to Elder Game, going to be looted from mobs, bosses, and what have you? And I think that's going to be a real indicator, both in terms of player participation in the economy, both in terms of trying to play the auction house, and in terms of basically how dynamic or how static the economy is likely to be, particularly if players end up just buying everything they need from an NPC or just going out and farming from mobs. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts on that.
Well, we'll definitely find out. Nyan would like to... Nyanya. Sorry. Would like to go next.
My only comments on crafting would be this. I've played so many different MMOs, and I've always found that if I wanted to craft as I was leveling, most of the time the crafting seemed pretty useless for my character. I've always wanted to be able to level my crafting and actually use the stuff that I'm making as I'm leveling, where I'm not making like 25 of the same chess piece to just sell to the vendor, where I could use and other people in my guild could actually use what I'm creating. And also at higher levels, have the crafting be a little bit more difficult to complete, obviously, and a higher demand on the auction, where, of course, is going to help the economy. But I would just like to see the ability to level crafting as I'm leveling my character and have it actually be useful. That's it.
Okay. Shadowed Sin?
I want to talk about. I'm really hoping that they don't start going down. I'm going to bring up a bit just because I'm kind of in its case about some of the design decisions as of late. Is plethora of currencies. I'm staring at a list here, and they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have over 7 currencies in their game. I don't want a bunch of random things I can get in a game to exchange for things. I want a core set of currencies, because the more stuff you toss out there, the more confusing the economy is going to be. I mean, people alone can barely understand the real life economy, let alone an online game. If they want to make something that complex, well, I hope they go the evil route and actually hire a dang economist to watch this silly thing. But I want them to think simplistic, straightforward. Don't create all these arbitrary currencies to get around things. If you're going to have something cost something, have it cost that set currency.
Okay. Blank space?
Alright, before I begin, nobody yell and get mad at me, but I gotta ask. Real money auction house, yes or no? You can put it in chat, just interested. That was it. I'll be back, but that was it for now.
Alrighty then. Anrez.
Yeah, I was just going to pivot off of something Gazimov said. And one of the most recent ones that I leveled up in crafting was Guild Wars 2, and I hate to use a negative as an illustration for another game, but the fact that this new game that we're all excited about, we've been told and preached about this long amount of effort we're going to have in in-game. It's not going to be a journey to get to in-game, but the journey also, part 2 starts in in-game. So if crafting isn't continually brought to relevance, then it will become irrelevant the moment that everyone's first set of characters get to Elder Game. Because once we're all in Elder Game, we'll be finding gear for our next alts. So I know that we learned a lot about the CDC and how not every drop is going to be perfect. My hope is that and this will probably get me barked at by the Raiders, but that's okay. My hope is that there's not the perfect tank weapon and there's not the perfect healing staff in every dungeon boss's rotation. I hope they're all off by 1 or 2 chips. And I hope it's the effort of the crafters and the effort of other drops to bring those pieces into more relevance for players, because that creates trading, it creates bartering, it creates loot rolls. winning more than 1 or 2 loot rolls to get your right item, that takes time and effort. And time and effort means, in my opinion, more relevance for the economy.
All right. MMO Papa?
Yeah, I just wanted to go ahead and touch on the subject that Neonia brought up. When you build those 25, let's say, breastplates over and over while crafting, you actually do have an option on what you can do with the item from that point. You could either salvage it for materials, or you could how would you say, remove the microchip from its socket and use it at a later point in time. So it's kind of got a sink for items that you would deem useless to yourself.
Alrighty. Techno?
To touch on Nianya's topic as well of crafting being useless, or it could be useless, would you rather have it to be something like Vindictus, where you farm the materials for it in order to make your next set? So basically all gear is crafted? Or would you prefer something more similar to what most MMOs do, which is they have drops from bosses along with crafted gear?
I'm sorry, was that a question related towards me?
Just in general.
Well, I just think I just want to be able to use what I'm making. I've noticed a lot of the times as I'm leveling, maybe it's because I can't gather as fast as I'm questing. It seems like when I go to craft, as I'm making, let's say it's gear, it's usually not any better than the quest rewards I'm receiving. I guess I'm looking more for crafted items to be a step above what we're getting from questing or what's dropping off the mobs. I think that we should be able to gather all of our crafting items at lower levels from the world, from mobs, maybe from bosses for, blue item level, I don't know. But I just think it should be a little bit better than what we're getting in the world, because we're actually taking the time to go ahead and craft. Just my opinion.
So something like you can find so-and-so breastplate or pants or what have you off of random mobs, but if you kill a boss, he has a chance to drop a piece of, say, his armor, and you can use that piece to craft an actual chest piece for you specifically, and that's better than what you can find anywhere currently.
That would actually be pretty cool. Yes, indeed.
I just want to chime in here quickly, kind of connecting what Niania and Anras were talking about. One thing that I honestly think is kind of silly when it comes to raiding is that we have this obsession with getting the shiny, and it's repeatable over and over again, or just the grinding in general. I mean, one way to do something like this is make it so that crafting items not only are useful, make it so that they are on par with the shiny, so that someone at full master crafting can make an armor set that is just as good, if not even better, than what you can get in raid. And I mean, it'd be kind of interesting to see if all the raid sets were actually made by crafters. It would actually encourage raiders to have crafters in their guilds, and raiders could actually make money because they could be the best raiding guilds who can farm those raids and then sell money to crafters. Interchange stuff, make it so it's exchangeable. So as Anraz mentioned, we get more trading, so we get more economy going.
Okay. Yaksan?
One thing I want to chime in, don't worry, I don't have a list of time. I just wanted to talk about sort of the inflation in low-level economy and how that comes hand in hand. I even mentioned it with Bull. I have like slight disagreements, but I'm no master economist or anything like that. I'm not trained, so I don't know if this is even feasible. There's one thing that I would like is a steady sort of level-to-level inflation, as it were. Sort of like you see, just if you're thinking, well, if you ignore the auction house and all the trading like that, like you start just by getting copper, then silver, and perhaps like at 60 you might be getting 1 or 2 gold, there's that kind of inflation. However, even like in vanilla times and and so forth, especially during expansion jumps, then the level of inflation would rapidly jump, primarily because the wards will jump as well, and this would also have an effect on the low level economy, where you'd suddenly see, for example, what was once a stack of copper bars selling for 20 silver is now selling for 20 gold. And sure, this might mean that low-level gatherers might be able to sell for that price, but that means they are getting money that is appropriate for the end game economy at a at the low level stage, meaning that the reward structure is extremely has extremely dissonant with with the the whole commerce thing. So in the end, you just you might as well not be giving coin anymore for quests or mobs, because in terms of denomination is much less worthless. It's much more worthless compared to what you can get from the auction house due to this massive jump in inflation. It's like the money sinks at low level won't even apply anymore, like such as repairs or ability skills, because suddenly just by doing what you would normally do, but getting affected so much by the end game that you have like 20 gold, and what normally should theoretically make you more level you out more in your money, just barely makes a dent. So it makes low level economies like, why even bother? That's mainly my concern, and is one of my sort of disagreements with Bull on the topic.
All right, Guyoing.
Oh, yeah, one thing I wanted to go back a topic a while ago on the usefulness of crafting. We all know now that the randomized gear from dungeon drops and such, do we know if that randomization is going to be included in the crafting system as well? That may create the balance of a useful item and a non-useful item, and the need to continually craft to try to get that higher, the different set that you actually want on that gear piece. Or am I talking out of thin air here?
I haven't heard anything that's been
While I
confirmed.
can't confirm it, I would assume that that is the fact, that it would be randomized as to the chips or things you get into the sockets.
That alone will create that flux that hopefully crafting would need to create good items, bad items, the general crit system, so to be, for a +1 or whatnot.
Hey guys, just to chime in on this point, I don't know if everyone's seen the relevant thread from Central by Gortok, one of the guys designing the items. There are elements of randomization. There is no best in slot. They are well worth a read if you're interested in this sort of thing. Essentially, crafters are going to be very relevant for anyone who wants to get that best in slot gear, because crafting is going to be the only way to do it.
Gazimov?
Okay, so I wanted to touch on a couple of items. I think, first of all, just coming back on the whole trying to keep crafting relevant when you're trying to do raiding and dungeoneering and stuff like that. I think it's very difficult to say to people, okay, if you craft an item, it's going to be potentially better than what you can get from a raid, because otherwise, why would you go into a raid in the first place? A lot of people, although there are some who like going in to explore, there's a whole bunch of people who are in it for the gear, and if they can get better gear from just crafting, then they'll probably do that. I think there's an issue with saying to people, okay, if we go in there, we grab an item from a raid, like a essence or something like that for people to craft with, then it's going to be an issue where, okay, you've got a bunch of recipes as a crafter, but unless you're doing endgame raiding or you have contacts with an endgame raiding guild, those recipes are going to be pretty much useless to you. So it's a problem that's pretty difficult to resolve. So I think that you need to kind of work out a separate way of saying, okay, do we want crafting to go into as a kind of preparation for raiding, so it can do equivalent to dungeons, but if you want to get the best quality gear, you're going to have to do raiding? Do you want it to work hand in hand with what you get from raiding? So you might get gear that's kind of all right from raids, but you have to fine tune it using crafted materials, like, as people have said, you use circuit board crafting to kind of tune the microchips that you've got in there. I think that's really the kind of difficulty that you've got that needs to be addressed there. I don't think there's a simple solution for saying, okay, we've got to do it one way or another, because either way it ends up leaving out a group of people.
The simplest answer to the problem there is if you want to deal with like tiers of weapon power, what you do is you make it so that the general abilities of the weapons at a certain level are basically the same. And when you do that, you cut down on power creep, and then all you do when you do raiding is you get shiny armor, which is what a lot of people go after. And then if you introduce expansions later on, you don't cause power creep even faster than it is going to be introduced.
Yeah, but that still doesn't resolve the whole issue of allowing crafters a stake in being able to create endgame gear.
The endgame gear is just as good as whatever's attained in any form of endgame, then it's just as viable.
May I?
Yes, you may.
When it comes to crafting, I feel that the community is saying that they want to make sure they're relevant, but some of us want to make sure that you're not able to make a raid tier item without being in a raid. So my proposal for this is a simple one. You're allowed, by being 300 is a nice number, level 300 in your crafting, to make an item, but you may need certain materials that come from a challenge to make a nicer item. And of course, based upon how nice they are, depends whether they're BOP or BOE, which is bind on pickup or bind on equip. I do feel that if you're going to have a tiered system like that for crafters to feel relevant, that anything that comes out of a raid should be materials that you can pick up, but is only for you. So normally that is your weapons or a belt or boot, something like that. But I feel that that is a possible solution to what we are talking about here.
I agree with Blank Space on that, where a crafter would go into a raid, collect the material, and be able to craft his own gear. But as far as crafting a gear that's bind on equipped to give to somebody else, I feel that the other person can just, well, in most games, buy gold and then just cheat their way up to the best armor.
I think that it's a bit difficult because that kind of technique's been tried before. If you go back to Vanilla WoW, if you look at Sulphurous Hand of Ragnaros, you'd need to have a high-level blacksmith in order to craft that. You'd still need to gather the items, and it would take a very long time to do that, but you'd have an item that was quite potent at the end of it, a legendary grade item, I think it was. I think what we're saying is that we'd rather have crafters that aren't necessarily into the raiding scene be able to pick up items looted from raids and create items. I'm not sure if that's something that's actually worthwhile doing or not. It's a difficult thing because basically all you're doing is drawing out the time that it takes to get that legendary item. Now, if you're going to say, okay, you're going to need a crafter to do a legendary, then that's one thing. Or you could just say, okay, you need to get 10 random bits that drop over the period of time to create a legendary, like they did for Staff of Medivh. So I think it's do you need the role of a crafter to solve that issue of drawing out how long it takes to make a legendary?
On that topic, guys, if let's say we're in progression and these items are dropping within organizations, and I'm not going to say just guilds because the social circles allow you to perhaps not be in a guild to go do a raid. They may decide that 5 of these things drop and you need 20 of them to build an item, and they're going to save so many to make these items for themselves, but they might need some money. They may be able to put those on the auction house or not. My question is, I think we can say that if someone's doing something that we would put at a heroic tier, if I may use World of Warcraft, them being able to trade and sell those is fine as a crafter, as an adventurer. When it comes to something that is a little bit more difficult as a raid, do we make that item drop for the crafters a bind on pickup, but then allow them to sell specific items like, oh, I can make a belt that's really cool if my guild or group allows me to do so. I can put that on the auction house, or I'm able to use it for myself to make something really cool. I just want to know exactly what we're trying to push forward for here. Not just because we all know that, you know, it's cool to go in as a crafter and, oh crap, I've got to switch from armor smithing to weapon smithing because the progression content right now says I can make the best in slot by being a weaponsmith. Well, I mean, we got that, but I want to iron out the rest of it.
Yeah, and I think the other issue is that do you really need a crafter to actually make something if it's going to drop anyway? Or are we just trying to solve the problem of a crafter that's not in a raid guild but spends a lot of time doing crafting should be able to get something nice and snacky out of it?
I think it'd be really interesting if they did kind of the Zelda mentality of it. You know, you scatter certain random material throughout the world, and if a explorer or a crafter finds it, maybe they can create. Let's say this takes as long as it takes to do a raid, right? 100 million hours, and they're able to make that sword, but it takes forever to make the damn thing. Why not let them have a high tier sword if it literally takes that long to make the damn sword?
I think it all boils down to Anduril versus Excalibur, kind of like I brought up during Late Night Dominion that one time. It's a position of if you want to craft the item and then give it away to somebody else as a gesture of generosity versus going out into the world or the raid and then finding it yourself and keeping it for yourself like a bind on pickup. But like personally as a crafter, I enjoy making overpowered items to give to other people because, well, that's just how my generosity works, I guess.
Something I wanted to bring up here kind of goes off well what Emma and Papa just said. We've seen it in other games, and I wanted to pick y'all's brains as well. Do we think that we should be able to level via crafting like we saw in Guild Wars 2?
Definitely not. I think that decreases the crafter's value.
I, as a gamer, hate playing that metagame where I've been playing for 20 hours, I'm sleeping for 4, I'm playing for 20 more hours, I'm sleeping for 4, and then an entire guild put a bunch of materials together and instantly boosted somebody up to max level. I think it's a terrible idea. So my vote is no thank you.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought as well. I'm kind of going a little bit from that. I wanted to, I guess, just throwing my 2 cents here, maybe a little bit of clarification. I'm not quite sure. I feel like we're kind of getting around the point a little bit, but from what it sounds like, from what Gortok said in his awesome thread over on Wildstar Central, he was talking a bit about I guess the way that itemization is happening in endgame raids, and how the most important thing to look at isn't necessarily, basically crafting gear. It all comes down to the locked sockets and how those are kind of itemized. So, raid loot should have the best PvE lock sockets, bar none, I think. And I think Asimov hit the nail on the head when he said that you should have to perfect your gear. You should be able to get gear, and then from there, be able to fix those other sockets so that they are the best. That's all I wanted to say there.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Sorry, go ahead, Gazamol.
Yes. I was just going to say, I completely agree with you. I do like the idea of saying, okay, if you go into a raid and you get locked sockets in your gear, you're going to have to play that game to fine-tune the sockets that you've got in order to unlock the milestones that are really important to you. And I think that's a nice game and a nice puzzle to have. And that still makes crafters relevant if the crafters are churning out the circuit boards that need to slot into that. I think that's a good puzzle to have. I also really like the idea of giving crafters some really epic quests that take an eternity to do, but they get something really incredible out of the end of it. Send them on an epic saga to really fine tune a sword or something like that. That would be monumental. And those are the kind of things that people really talk about as well. Those are the tales that people share about, oh, I did this thing, it took me 6 months, it took me halfway around the world, and I ended up doing so many different things, but at the end of it I had such an awesome item that I'm going to use it for transmogging and stuff until I finish playing the game, because it matters so much to me. So yeah, I completely get where you're going from there.
We have Renee who'd like to speak up quickly, and as a reminder, we will be transitioning topics in about 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, not to sound stereotypical role player or anything, but obviously a lot of what's interesting in gear for some of us is how it looks, and I know they have mentioned a fairly robust dyeing system. I'm just wondering what people's views are on maybe dyeing an item a color while crafting, and do people want to be able to have weapons dyeable, for instance?
I think any chance a crafter gets to kind of put his brand or mark on an item, the better. So dyeing weapons and armor and putting your little crafting logo on it, absolutely.
Brenner would like to chime in now.
Something kind of the complete opposite of all the very, very serious crafting things. One of the things that I would really like to see, and maybe part of it more as a role player, maybe part of it just in general, is fun items. Nothing serious. It was something I actually really loved, especially in the most recent expansion to World of Warcraft. Lots of items that are they're just silly. They're things that you like putting out because it's fun to craft it. It's not something that necessarily is going to make your gear better or make you do anything better, but it gets a laugh out of people, or you get a kick out of seeing it. Those types of things to me are really, I love those things. I also feel like it really fits with the humorous mood of Wildstar in general.
All right, and Saber?
I'm just talking about the topic of crafting, like, from raid gear. I reckon it'd be interesting to see, rather than just collecting material from raids and then selling that to someone else and then them crafting something, if you could have the material for, like, the bind on pickup materials, and then someone could use that material to craft something that was bound to you. So even if you're not a crafter, you can get a crafter to craft it for you.
Yeah, some form of communal crafting where multiple people can club together things that are bound to them. Some kind of shared interface. That'd be interesting.
You could also make the communal crafting entitled to the people that put enough effort into the crafting to begin with, and maybe start to link maybe make it easier for you to figure out who are into crafting as much as you are. Give your crafters a means of forming up with like-minded folk.
Well, even if you've got like something that's bound to you, and then you can like go into the trade window, and then they can do the craft thing like how you enchant items in WoW without trading, except they use the material that's in your inventory.
Sorry to cut in there. So we will be transitioning topics here. But we've been on this topic for about 20-25 minutes now. If y'all have any more points to make, you're more than welcome to take this over to the forums. I apologize for cutting in. It's just we need to try to remain efficient. We still have a lot to talk about. If any of you need to go soon, feel free to message Pseudonym now with any topics you really want to bring up before you have to go. If not, we'll continue on, and we'll be moving over to PvP as our next topic of discussion.
Yes, one of the things that I would recommend as well is, since so many people definitely want to talk, we can start out with a queue to get people talking, but it seems that everyone enjoys interacting with each other, which I would love to help facilitate. So if you are not lit up right now with the ability to talk. Let me know if you are wishing to discuss about PvP. I will open you up. And as you guys discuss things with each other, please, by all means, chat back and forth.
Alrighty, perfect. So PvP.
Anyone wish to start that?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Here we go.
Can I chime in here quickly?
All right, go ahead, Shadowson.
I'm gonna take something that I don't know if a lot of people play Eve. I just follow Eve just because it's crazy. I actually want to pull something I had over from crafting that I think would be kind of crazy for war plots. We can already basically capture bosses. One thing that Eve does really well about community crafting is they allow the ability to basically make really big ships that can kill a lot of people, right? And it takes a long time to build these things. Do some war plots where you can go into a raid, get them together, and then have like special turrets that these groups can put together and then can pimp the crap out of their war plots. That'd be another really cool way to tie in several systems and then also make PvP an even bigger of a group effort.
Blank.
Oh, here we go. Hardcore PvPer. Ready, folks? We'll chip out away at a couple, get some ideas from you guys. My concern first is within the social structure that I do love in Wildstar, having, you know, a war party, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a guild. I wanted to know what people thought about it being incentivized to be in a guild running a 40-person war plot and making sure that there's, you know, some sort of reason for doing that. Instead of just, oh, I just grabbed 40 people. Yes, okay. They may have the tiers, you have to be this high of a rating to get it. But again, what would be the point? What's the incentive to go there as my guild instead of just picking out the best of the best on the server? You know what I mean? That's one of my things that makes me nervous.
I see. So you're looking for some kind of feedback loop from war parties back into guilds?
Well, right now, from what I understand, you are in a war party. So you could, instead, I'm going to have a guild. I'm going to go in my 40 people. What's my incentive over watching the boards and saying, you know, this guy has a low rating, this guy's got a low rating. I'm just going to make a power team. You know, as a guild, it's not a huge. I want to know where that incentive is going to be, so it makes me nervous. Yeah.
Does it need an incentive? They're their own things. A guild can still make a guild war party. Granted, it'll have a separate tag, etc. But does it actually need to be incentivized? I'm not sure personally that it does.
That's what we're here to talk about. What do you guys think?
I think that it incentivizes the people that are in PvE guilds that have a strong PvE influence, but you still want to do your thing with war parties. So there's an effort to give you the best of both worlds. In terms of does it need an incentive to bring in your guild, I'm with Zap. If Zap even took that stance, I don't think it does.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the incentive would be simply sentimental, if anything, that the fact that you're hanging out with a bunch of friends that you know instead of a bunch of random people who could end up being trolls.
Here's my question. I'm putting together a hardcore guild. We're going to do PvP. Now, I'm sure you guys know what cherry picking is. What's to say that it's not going to destabilize, you know, your social server? Because it's going to be like, oh, that guy's got a higher rating, this dude's got a higher rating, and our war plot's better than his. Hey, dude, why don't you just come on over here? It just makes the lines of within that social circle that I enjoy. I keep saying social circle, structure of circles and war parties. As a guild, you know, I want to see that fleshed out a little bit more. I want that line to be a little bit darker. I don't want it to be so gray.
I think the problem, I think one of the main problems you're dealing with in that situation is if a guild leader and their officers are making a guild from the get-go, it's your job to say, okay guys, we're doing this, this, and this. And if you have people being flaky and going back and forth between stuff, well then, why did you recruit those people in the first place? You know, it's the job of the guild leader to say, hey, I want to do PvP, but I'm not. But we're also doing this too. We're PvP and we're also doing PvE. So I do think it'd be kind of cool if war plots and guilds could connect, but incentivization, I'm going to agree with Zapparobo. They don't need to provide anything. That's the guild leader's job, and that's the officer's job, and that's the guild member's job themselves to incentivize themselves, not the devs. Sorry.
I can see what blank means, though, in terms of it feeling or possibly lending itself to kind of shoveling out the people that aren't as willing and able to put in the amount of time. Like, it puts a war party leader and a guild leader in a position where they have to kind of just zap people.
So are war plots all... A quick question on the war plots. They're instance, right? So it's basically just 40v40 or something like that, or what? Does anyone know?
Yep.
So it is, okay.
It's 40v40 instances, but as a counterpoint to that, what's to stop in other games a fragmentation from a guild? If you've got a PvP-focused guild, what's to stop someone breaking out, forming a new guild with their cherry-picked players? There's no real difference. In fact, this has a benefit in that you don't break up the initial guild structure because it's a separate kind of structure as the war party.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, it's the same as in any other game. What's from stopping them to starting a new raid team? Like,
And if those people do that, simple answer is screw them. They weren't the people for your guild. They're more interested in that, and they're not interested in being part of the guild.
Yep.
I don't mean to sound fickle, but that's mainly one of the reasons why I enjoyed the guild system in Guild Wars 2. I could have one PvE guild, or I could have a second guild for PvP. So when I'm done PvEing, I just stand down and I represent the PvP guild, and then I'm around people that actually enjoy PvP, that are actually, better at it.
Yeah, I have to say that I really like the way that they have set up the war parties and the circles and then the guilds, because we have a large number of people probably coming into this game from our guild who have a wide variety of interests. So I really like that they have put in these other ways to sort of formally delineate the teams within the context of the game. That's something that we would be doing regardless on our website. It's nice to have those mechanics in the game for that structure.
If I can just jump in, I might steal a play out of Blank's playbook here, but we're talking about forming teams that have to work together really closely, and I'm not really a big PvPer, but I'm kind of curious. I was never big in other games until in the Old Republic they came out with Hutball. So if I could just see in the chat, did we like Hutball, yay or nay?
That's pretty 50-50.
Yeah, that's kind of what I thought. It was a very decisive mode because it was either you never heard anybody that said it's okay, you just heard love it or hate it.
Yeah, that's definitely 50-50.
Another thing too, the point of war plots is really going to be the end game for PvPing. So the people that want to master both raiding and war parties, I have a feeling, are going to either have a rude awakening or be about as hardcore as it gets.
What
I'm more interested in a similar thing to World versus World in Guild Wars, where it's just massive. It'd be in the open world, but since obviously you can't have war plots in the open world, if settlers can build up, like in contested zones, they can build up certain camps or something like that, and those you could basically have everybody, no matter if they're in a war party or what, can go attack the other factions' towns and stuff.
Yeah, that's been confirmed. Settlers will be able to build PvP guards, and structures will be destroyable. It was in one of the interviews. It's going to be happening from White Veil up.
All right, so like if you can't necessarily get a war party and everyone into the war party, you can have one day of the week where you get to the contested zone and you try pushing out the other faction out of that zone completely, or what have you.
I think one cool feature that'd be nice for PvP in general would be the ability to get with a bunch of guildmates and organize scrimmages. Because that was something I loved about Guild Wars 1. You know, if you want to train a GVG, and GVD was freaking hardcore. They were like full on, they have teams had their own signature moves and everything. I just want scrimmaging. You know, this is something they just put in the Guild Wars 2 for the thing that they promised at launch. But seriously, scrimmaging for most forms of PvP would be nice, because imagine trying to test out your plot's defenses and being able to go, okay, I have a friend's guild, I want you guys to run at, do the turrets work? No, they don't. Crap, now we have to reconfigure everything. That is something you want to know if you're a hardcore war plot fighter from the get-go before you jump into the actual leaderboards or whatever the heck they're going to give us.
Yeah, that's going to have to come with its own set of systems, though, because if you allow scrimming, you're then going to have to lock out XP gain and everything else from it, rewards, etc., so that you don't get a situation where someone just sets up 2 war parties and just kind of throws matches at each other.
I was going to say, it sounds like that they would have to have their own boundaries, because win trading, once you get up at the top, is slightly annoying when you are the people who are not engaging in it, so...
Well, I don't think we'll have that problem though, right? Because war plots are just for people at max level, so that shouldn't matter. Pardon me. I did want to bring up one other point, more to the point of I suppose the structure of the war plot itself as a thing. I'm looking forward to it only because Well, I'm looking forward to it for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons I'm looking forward to it is because it's sort of, we haven't heard too much about it. I'd love for there to be some sort of, I guess, MOBA element to it with a little bit of PvE mixed in with your PvP. And then also buying of items, I think would work really well in a war plot scenario. Can I just get like maybe people hate that idea, maybe people will like it. I just like people to talk about it a little bit.
I like the idea of the unique Wildstar things, like perhaps bringing in a raid boss. Somebody else somewhere, it may have actually even been you, who had discussed possible MOBA-like and other PvE things. I like to keep my systems clean and distinct, so I like having my PvP systems be just about PvP and my PvE strictly about PvE. So when it comes to kind of melding them together, I'm normally a hard no on that.
So you're not a big fan of the raid boss and the war plot then?
I do feel that it has kind of its own place within the game of Wildstar. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I can see how it is something different. So,
well, let's say some attacking war party brings in a raid boss to help attack your war plot. You'll have base cannons and stuff, so you know, it's more of something just to help bolster to the attack rather than, you know, your entire group has to focus on the raid boss first before you can take out the attacking party.
Right. Didn't they say that you would have a certain amount of points to spend, and a raid boss would actually use up a lot of your points? So having the raid boss in there is cool, but it's something you'll have to think about because you're going to not have a lot of the other standard defenses.
I see that being something that is going to be an interesting balance, because it's going to have a weighted value on it, and then there is going to be those war parties who are like, wow, we just did this raid boss. It was difficult because it does this mechanic, and we're going to put it in because it has a static 30-point value, and even though that's hefty, what it brings is much more than the actual weight. So I see it being interesting. It's something that will be balancing in the future, but again, it's unique to Wildstar, so big thumbs up for it.
I think in general, war plots should be more like a game of chess, where like there's actual strategy to it, and because you have so many people, which is something I'd like to actually see happen in PvP rather than the massive Zerg, which is what Wub became eventually, and what the Cyrodiil will probably be in Tesso. And then I would love to see Arena be more like, you know, your hardcore team fighting. And to me, that will give Wildstar a different name, and will actually create different grades of PvPers, and will actually possibly even give us something to be talking about. Because we'll be like, oh yeah, did you hear about Guild so and so? They took down this guild using this raid boss, and they introduced some crazy ass new strategy, and they won somehow. I love that shit. I love that crap. It makes our game. It crosses boundaries. It's one thing I love so much about watching, reading, doing guild interviews for Guild Wars 1, because there was literally one guild that just randomly made up builds. They didn't win too much, but they became known for their crazy, weird builds. And it's great when guilds get known by that.
I agree. Hopefully the war party system in general isn't just a pretty cut and dry way to win the match, because if it isn't, then like you just said, you have the ability to draw up plays, so to speak, and do crazy stuff.
To me, this also begs the question of where we're going to, I guess, pull war plots from. By this, I mean, can you only face other war plots that are on your server, other server cluster? I'd really like for it to be like national, right? So like I can face anyone from the US, and I think that might actually be what we're looking at. But because that would be good. It would definitely add to that sort of system that they're talking about in terms of scoreboards and stuff like that. So I hope it's national, maybe even international. I don't know, but just something like that I think would be the best.
I just want to chime in, let everyone know that we have 7 minutes left before we transition, so get those thoughts in.
I like smaller clusters for setting up your battle groups per se. Having larger ones, again, no objective real reason except for when you look at SEA, they normally bring different tactics to the way that they fight. So having international would be super interesting and would be pretty hard logistically, network-wise. But if, say, in North America, those who play North America, they had clusters, for a battle group of 3 servers, I think that would be interesting and doable.
My problem, or I guess my concern, is that because war plots are such a big investment, I mean, we're talking 20 or 40 people, I'm worried about how many war plots, how many active war parties there are going to be at any given time on a given server.
They're war parties. It's not. The way I look at it is, it's really cool. You can get 40 people together. You may not be successful. You may not be the ranked #1 in your battle group, but you can still get 40 people together and go do it and potentially get points and potentially get gear. So I don't worry about that.
Straight up, like this guild versus this guild. You could pull randoms. You could pull, like, if you have a friendly guild, you can pull maybe 10 members from that guild to help you attack one guild. It doesn't have to be all 40 of you.
Right.
It's just you need 40 people.
Which is another point too. Hopefully there's challenges.
Yaxan?
Yes, I'm going to bring up a rather controversial topic, and I bet I'll get a lot of flack for it. And this is coming from someone that actually does not actively participate in. This is about open world PvP, and I do not actively participate in it. I enjoy going PvP servers, but I'm never the ganker. I try to avoid conflict and everything like that. But here's something that was kind of controversial on the forums and actually does come up often. It is the nature of PvP servers in open world PvP, and it's primarily towards what is griefing and sort of what is allowed on the PvP servers, because you'd get often and any forum is the the hardcore open world PvPers complaining about all the quote unquote care bears. They're always complaining about issues that happen on PvP servers, especially like say corpse camping and so forth like that. I am like so much a pacifist, but even then, I personally do not want any of these kind of things restricted. It's like one of the things I think from wild times back in the day is whenever someone complained to GMs about these kind of things, they would always answer, if it can be resolved with PvP, then it should be, and we won't, come into that. And then that's, related to that would be having, voicing out in the world chat or whatever it could be, for that can happen in there. But, related to this is sort of the controversy about like how strict should people be? You know, there are many people voicing that there should be stricter rules on PvP servers to prevent griefing, but there's of course the controversy of like the open world PvPers that come to PvP servers for that and say, well, if you don't want this, why did you roll in the first place? And
Well-
this actually, I just want to finish a little bit here. I'm nearly done. It's something like I think it was one of the guys on IRC from Carbine. I don't remember what it was. One of the econ team. I would say it's one of those great guys. They mentioned that sometimes people that go and play on PvP servers aren't actually PvPers, but they're just following their friends, and they end up getting the negative flack out of this. But I think the ideal solution to that is something that that's pretty much known as guesting in Guild Wars 2, or just in World of Warcraft I have now. One of the few features I really like there is that if you have on like the BattleNet friends list and you invite to the group, you are like phased into their server. So in that way, that could be solved. This sort of friend issue could be solved by your friends playing on the PvE server. But if you want to group up, you can temporarily move on to their server, of course, knowing the risks. And that's what I'd like to say about it.
What about something like an opt-in system for, like, obviously if they don't have a separation between PvE servers and PvP servers? I know I played Risk Your Life way back when, and they had it where if you went to the contested zones, there'd be NPCs in the main camps or whatever you talk to that would opt you into PvP, so you could actually open world PvP. Otherwise, if you just want to do the PvE stuff and just get out of the contested zone as fast as you can also do that without having to get griefed by just trying to kill, collect such as 10 of such and such. You don't get griefed for half an hour by some guy just because he's bored.
Yeah, I think that's sort of server structure kind of thing. But if they have it, I just say like old school, like have it. No, I'll just start with if it was single server, then that would sort of make sense. But I don't think they're going to do that at all with Wildstar. But sort of what you're describing there is something people will come up again is like, well, that technically is a PvE server. PvE server already has the opt-in option for contested zones, so it's sort of a redundancy kind of thing. But that's how I see it. I could be wrong though.
Oh, I'm gonna make people mad. So, PvP servers, calling people Care Bears, calling them casual, whatever you want. I like to stress community. A lot of you guys are starting to, guys and girls, folks are understanding that. If you're on a PvP server, it is my opinion that when it comes to open world PvP, it creates conflict. Conflict is great for your community. It depends on how you address it. Somebody decides to corp camp somebody and you see that come across zone chat. If you're one of my guys, you're gonna send it on up because it's a potential a call to go kick someone's ass. Oh, that guy over there decided he wants to pick on somebody. We're bored flying around, farming stuff, waiting for the arena queue. We'll go fly around here. I do believe that if you roll on a PvP server and there are specific zones that allow for PvP, that's what comes with it. If you do not want the conflict, you don't roll on that type of server. I particularly don't want to RP, so I will not roll on an RP server. That's just within the parameters of what those servers mean, I guess. And then they even make it so there's safe places. This isn't a sandbox where we can just blow everything up and I can go into your town and you can't hide. There will be places where you can hide or not engage in PvP. So, sorry, but that's just how I look at it.
I have to agree with Blank. I mean, you know what you're getting into when you go into a PvP server, regardless of who you're grouping with, if your friends aren't into it, or even if you're not into it. Every time you leave that protected zone, you know very well that you're going to be having to look over your shoulder at some point. So it just kind of comes with the territory. Maybe I'm just a bit old school. I mean, I don't mind ganking people. I don't mind getting a group together and killing the opposite faction. It's part of it.
Sorry to interrupt again. We are about to hit we have actually already hit our limit for this topic. Take these ideas, go develop them on the forums. You're more than welcome to. Unfortunately, we'll be moving on to the next topic here. Our next one is going to be PvE. So go for it.
Also, as a reminder, anyone who is currently muted, if you wish to chime in on this topic, please let me know and I will ensure that you are unmuted.
Sure, I'll start it off. PvE. Just noticed recently that I believe it was Anres from Settler in Exile had made a mention about DKP systems in the future, and with chips and the way that they're locked and unlocked. I wanted to know what you guys were thinking about having to set up a system. And as a guild leader, I'm kind of aggravated with having to set up a system where it's need, then chip, then greed, and then having to balance that all of the other variables as somebody distributing loot. So I guess I'd like to start there. What are your guys' thoughts?
Now, are we going to be arguing about a token system for rating, or just outright the piece drops and you're rolling to get it?
I just wanted to hear other people's thoughts. I mean, honestly, my opinion is that it's another layer, which I do enjoy about Wildstar, don't get me wrong, but that's going to make it difficult because these items are going to be dropping, and you're going to be hoping, okay, from what I understand, the stats are randomized, so it drops. You then have to decide whether you want to need it for what it has, what it could have, what it has on it, or then the chip out of it, or then greed it. I feel that that's going to be a pain in the butt for the guilds who don't have a loot council system where it's just this the way it is, send it out. For those who have to balance them for DKP. So I was wondering if people had thoughts or opinions on that, and also possibly having it integrated so you could need /chip/greed actually be, an actual loot option.
Well, they've already got the need, chip, and greed system as like roles, how it is in WoW, but an actual like DKP system is the exact same as before DKP was invented. It's just someone will invent a system that fits the system.
Would anybody like to expand on that?
There's a lot of different ways you can do it. I think you can do with DKP. Another way to do it is you give a set amount of loot to each person when something's killed, like it's a unique thing, and then the system just assigns the piece to them, so you don't have rolls or anything. The nice thing about Wildstar is by linking specific weapons to specific classes, you're not going to have the you're not going to have the specific classes fighting over something. You're not going to have the healer saying, well, I don't want this because the druid's going to get it. That's not going to happen. All claws go to the stalker. All swords go to the warriors. It's going to be more about builds, who's running tank or something like that. But I think in general, when it comes to loot systems, I think honestly, I think if they make it as simple as possible, I don't know how they're going to do that, but I would like their loot system to be simplistic, because as Blake mentioned, the more shit that a guild leader has to manage when it comes to members in general is just annoying, because they will whine about anything they can get their hands on, depending upon who you're dealing with. If you're dealing with a very mature crowd, they'll roll fine. If you're dealing with that one whiny healer that's gonna throw a fit every time you raid, then that's gonna just become a headache.
The other thing too that I wanted to bring up was items dropping which have a percentage off, and I'm missing. I wish I had the link for it. It was talked about, you go into, and I wasn't sure the tier, so if it's not for raiding, I take this back, but if I'm going into a raid and I'm looking for a drop, I know that this item drops and it has this chip, that chip, stats, whatever, that I can use. Cool. My problem is that these attributes have a small percentage that could be better. That is the problem, because you go into a raid, there's a loot table of 20 things, and out of them you need one, and it has these specific things on it. We're not talking about that layer anymore. We're talking about, oh, well, I got a crappy roll, so now the stamina on this sucks. Now I have to wait until next week to try and get this again because it may have more. That changing per week to week on the drops is really something I wanted to push forward for PvE, because that would be super frustrating to see an item drop in a 40-man and have somebody roll for it 3 times because it got progressively better and better, especially in hardcore groups that are going to be min-maxing.
That's not how the loot system works, though. The loot system either gives you a Like it'll either give you stamina, or it'll give you deflect, or it'll give you whatever other stats. It's not, it'll give you 40 stamina or 45 or 50.
Just an idea to toss out there for Carbine specifically, because there's going to be sometimes when people go on raids and they do stuff and you get some of those trash items. If someone, it might be a good idea maybe to allow the guilds to directly donate those trash items that maybe a low-level character will want directly into the guild bank. Just an idea.
Except for with Wildstar, some of the only way to get attribute chips is to break down an item. A lot of those trash items will probably be where the attribute chips you want for your good items are probably going to live. So I'm not sure that the concept of trash items is going to map over to Wildstar or not. And Bardic is on the stream saying that I speak truth, apparently.
Good point, man. Didn't know that. Thanks.
I'm looking for the post. So I feel like I'm talking out of my rear here, but I remember them talking about the variables that drop for the 1%, and that was my concern, was not so much the way things are looted, but if something drops one week and you pick it up, and then the next week the same thing drops, but it has a better power socket thing in it, and it has more of that same stat, that's what makes me nervous. So I'm trying to find that right now. If you can.
Yeah, maybe then in terms of kind of loot masters and guild leaders handing it out, it should be done against the base item. You should allocate it rather than the chips that randomly get generated into the item.
Well, I think it's also something where if you're running, Suicide Kings or DKP or something, that the person they have to decide, do I want to take, use my slot and get this item now, or do I want to try and get something that's itemized a little better for me? And that, that's just another little part of the game.
Yeah, DKP is going to be almost essential. I think especially in this game, especially with 40-man raiding. Nobody has time to loot council, 7, 8, 9 pieces of gear between 40 people. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, at least we'll be able to have mods to help us run DKP, that sort of thing. That's going to be super helpful.
Run DKP, nice. Sorry, bad joke.
One thing I'd like to talk about the whole loot thing. Maybe I zoned out and missed it, but one idea I brought up in the thread some age on ago when the dinosaurs roamed the earth was with the whole dealing with loot in raids. One idea I brought up is like if you have the master loot active, master looter system active, is that when you like loot the boss or chest or whatever, then all the qualified items, set to your threshold thing, would fall into the master looter loot bag, so you can continue the raid, and sort of have this the master looter can have this loot bag open, and distribute raid items from there, rather than people stuck at the boss. Or one person even stuck at the at the loot going like, well, who's gonna get to this and all that, but so people aren't slowed down by the looting process, and they could just even have it last until the end of the lockout or something like that. So later, maybe after the raid, after everything's done, then they could distribute the loot to the people that were assigned to that raid ID, as it were.
So basically what you're saying is you want to take what barbarians did for hundreds of years. They go into a village, they raid and plunder it, they gather it all together, and then they parcel it out. Is that what you're suggesting? Because that's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, something like that. It's mainly just, I haven't raided in a few years now, but when I did, there's always people, the raid always stops after the boss to distribute loot. You just, put it into one big grab bag and that the master looter or looters have access to. And maybe even have the rest of the raiders be able to look into, but not interact. Just look at the items, just tooltip them without having to run to the boss or click chat links or something like that. Just have this little window on the side showing the available loot and left to be distributed. Or maybe even have little tags like this item was distributed to this person and stuff like that.
That's a fantastic idea because then you can tell the bad raid leaders from the good ones because the good ones are going to be able to know who gets what, blah blah blah. Just a suggestion since we talking about raiding, do you mind if we maybe break also into dungeons and a few other aspects because this is PvP in general. So I'm just here's a quick question. Raiding is great, but what kind of dungeon content do you guys have?
Just before y'all continue, I just want to let you know that we will be calling the official meeting over in about 10-15 minutes. That said, we will allow you to continue talking here, kind of like mingle time, if you wish to expand on any topics. Go ahead.
I don't have any comments on dungeons, but another PvE topic that was brought up here in chat that I did want to comment on is just, big kudos to Carbine for the solo PvE endgame that they are looking at implementing. I have to say that, people like my wife, for example, who have no interest in raiding whatsoever, super excited about this solo content, where she can go and challenge herself and get good gear. Doesn't have to be on the same level as the raid gear necessarily, but can continue to improve her character and have adventures. And I think it's just a fantastic idea, and I hope that they continue forward with that.
Yeah, Avid, I have to agree with that. Another thing I think, pure speculation, but a nice possibility of solo endgame is that as guilds progress through endgame content, new players don't need to have a charity run if, say that solo endgame gear that they can acquire gets them raid ready, without the need to gather those 40 people and sort of have them help gear up another player.
Be also interesting to see if you're doing your guild a favor at all by doing the progression of the solo endgame.
Yeah, some form of like collecting materials even.
They did, if I remember correctly, they did talk a little bit about need to grind solo instances as well. This might be wrong, and I'm sure PJ will give me shit about it if it is. But I'm pretty sure they talked about how you can you're getting gear, but it's not it still drops just like a raid. So I'm actually looking forward to it. And Gray, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said that I think it will help with the rating as well, especially like at the start of a brand new patch or a brand new expansion, where that'll be very, 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 very valuable. I can't talk today, but yeah, this should be good.
In terms of something I'd like to see in instances, I'll use an example of one in World of Warcraft, the Sunken Temple. I like interactivity and puzzles that require all 5 players doing something. I want, the Temple of Aha. There's also side areas you can run into that temple and kill purples if you want to. Instance bosses if you want to summon them and take the time to do so. The more the merrier in terms of things that aren't necessary, but certainly free game if you want to take the time to do them.
That's actually a really interesting concept. I want to bring up this thing that I have this concept I actually remember talking to Mike Donatelli at one point in 2011 about. I would like to see more of what this is dungeons and the solo content in general. Instead of just fighting mobs in the dungeon, I want to see more fighting the dungeon itself. Puzzles, challenges, stuff that makes the dungeon more interactive or the experience in general more interactive. How many people still love, if you play enough Zelda games, you get really good at deducing on how stuff's going to be structured. Because then you go, okay, I can't figure out what's going on. And you start staring out the dungeon and go, ha, that's the vine I have to crawl up on. That kind of stuff is what really makes a game interactive and really challenges the player, rather than just killing the same, green-eyed goblin things over and over again with a new shiny boss at the end.
One of the things I'd like to see with dungeons is grouping them together so the instance entrances are like in the same room. I feel it really you can then go and explore from one to the next, and it also keeps them separate.
Like Scarlet Monastery.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a very popular concept that they've followed on with in Wrath of the Lich King and Burning Crusades, but I haven't really seen it since then.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
also-
In dungeons with a very strong theme or a strong story, those are very fun. If you look at Tor, the first flashpoint on each side, it's fantastic, great story. Some of the other ones have okay story, but they really didn't keep up that quality throughout. And I mean that I think would be really, really good.
And if you had the raid entrances in the same spot as well, then it's like you're kind of looking up to those people that go in while you're waiting. So it really brings like a place for people to group together.
One thing I want to mention about dungeons, before we run out of time, is one of the things I kind of want to see. Well, actually, I actually mentioned the thing with dungeons that one thing I noticed that over time, the concept or overall idea of a dungeon has changed over the years. What we once thought of a dungeon 10 years ago is completely different to what is now. Like nowadays, it's mostly linear and it's being further shortened down, like Secret World, where it's one or two trash groups to cheat you on the next boss that's going to be coming up, and it's done, and it's just like maybe done in like 20 minutes. And I think that's fine. And I think that's, something that is, perfectly okay and can coexist. One thing I'd like to see is seeing these older dungeons, like, I would only bring this up because it's so well known, is like Blackrock Depths, is maybe not at that scale, but seeing something like that come up again. And I'm hoping, because we've heard of adventures and we know very little about them, I'm hoping that adventures will fill that niche again. Bringing these larger sort of more non-linear dungeons back in there, especially like since BRD actually looked and felt like a Dwarven city and had all these little different aspects to it. While nowadays it's, well, you just run through the little corridor and there's some bosses in there, and I can't really name many of the Cataclysm bosses I did, or Massive Pandaria bosses I did, but I can name most of them in Vanilla and Burning Crusade. It's just my 2 cents on that topic.
Yeah, I personally agree with that. I mean, I actually really miss a lot of those more complicated dungeons. You also felt like you didn't just complete a dungeon. You felt you worked really hard. Your group had to be good at that. You wanted to explore. It was something a little bit more exciting than just rushing through to get a piece of gear or to see something quickly. Yeah, it's nice, but you move on, or you did your daily for the day. It's really nice to have that. It would be nice to see that again, something very thematic, something that's worth exploring, something that's worth an experience more than a task.
That's one of the things.
Oh, sorry, Saber.
That's one of the things I like about the group's dungeons. They can feel a lot bigger if you're going and doing it with a friend. With friends, you can group together and go and explore the group of dungeons. Whereas if you just have it as a single dungeon, it's like, bam, it's over and you're on to the next place.
I guess I'm going to use more single player examples here. I guess the big thing I'd like to see is I want to see more Dragon Age Origins versus what Final Fantasy has become. As anyone remembers doing the under roads, or what the heck they're called, and Dow, and you're traveling through the hordes of the various blighted creatures, and you get to the very end, and then you get that creepy little poem, and it's like Brood Mother, and then you have that story with the dwarves. It's that kind of stuff. That would be great for a dungeon, where it's like you start getting it, and then there's some epic story at the end, and then you have to maybe even do some kind of choice, and then the boss is afflicted by the choice. The dungeon needs to have a narrative. It can't just be let's jump in, get more done. I even love the fact that raids are going to be having stories again.
Yeah, and if you're at the end of your solo PvE progression instance and you make the wrong decision, permadeath.
Somebody just mentioned it. I think it was Zacchus. Hated when heroics and stuff turned into speed loot runs. I'm not a big one for lore and things like that. If I'm running through content and I stop, the developers have done something amazing. because for me to stop and pay attention and be like, wait, what is this quest guy saying? It means that they did something with the lighting or the music or something. So I also want to see PvE dungeons have that sort of content where I'm going through and I'm like, okay, I know I'm in here to kill this because this last dude has a shield or a weapon. But I want Wildstar to aspire to the place where they make me stop and go, holy shit, guys, did you see that? And everyone's like, yeah, dude, it's part of this quest line, and I'm actually catching up. Like, I really hope that happens because it's really awesome.
Amen.
Yeah, about the quoting bosses in dungeons, like, it's so good to be like, run away, little girl, run away.
You know what? Skyrim did that perfectly. Instead of telling the story through text, it's the environment should tell the story. You walk into a room and there's a bunch of corpses on the ground and a guy with a sword through and holding up a map. That kind of stuff. Don't give me pages of text. Give me setting. That's gonna pull in more people.
One thing cool that David talked about too is cutscenes and things like that in the world you can escape out of and see them in real time finishing out. So things like that I think will lend itself to dungeons as well.
I think to what Blank was saying, some people want that speed run and some people want to, complete these big, long, epic dungeons. One thing that I think the path system allows us is we've already seen that, say, explorers can find a hidden path in the world. Perhaps there's something we could do with if certain paths are along for the run, you can shortcut and skip, pieces of the run that you're not looking for. I think there's a lot of possibility there that could be explored to sort of bring the paths into these instances to help that out.
Like, for example, I'm just going to cut in there. I know I'm jumping in here a lot. If anyone has ever seen Monty Python the Holy Grail, one cool thing to do is if you hide evidence of the dungeon in, like, parts of the wall or something, you come along and in some kind of Elden script, and if you have an explorer with you or even a scientist, they can decipher that and say, oh, that way's deadly, this way's fun, and doesn't get us killed. Exactly. That would be another good way to do stuff.
Yeah, that'd be effectively badass if paths can alter endings.
Yeah, soldier gets a special weapon, explorer can decipher stuff, people can decipher stuff, the settler can be like, oh look, I got all this crap, I just built the Uber gun. 5 seconds and this thing's dead. I love that kind of crap.
I'm thinking along the lines with scientist solves a puzzle that, puts a huge debuff on the boss and just makes it a easy win.
That's a great idea, they need to do that.
I'm going to go ahead and cut in now. We're just going to go ahead and end the official meeting. Y'all, again, are more than welcome to hang out after the meeting to continue your discussions. So we're just over the 2.5 hour mark. We've had some pretty great conversations, heard some good ideas. I'd like to encourage you all to take what we've started here and take it back to the forums, maybe expand on that. I'm going to be linking a feedback box here in the comments. We'd love to hear what y'all have to say about the event. Regarding the time, was it long enough? Was it too short? And just whatever else you might have to say, please be as honest as you can. If you want to post links to continuation threads that you do take over to the forums, you can feel free to do so in the Townhall thread on Wildstar Central. A big thank you to everybody, and also a thank you to Pseudonym and Vuxy for volunteering to moderate the event this evening. Now it's going to be, mingle time. If you want to stick around, go ahead. We'll unmute you. You can talk about any subject. We're not going to limit it. And that's pretty much it. So have a good night, everybody.
Thank you all for coming.
So, Granok mating habits, go.
Alright, guys. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it was really long. It will get up on YouTube here soon. I apologize if my mic was going off and on and I was coughing and whatnot. Tomorrow we have the European Town Hall. This was the gathering of North America, Southeast Asia, and Australian guilds to get together and talk about Wildstar related issues. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. So, thanks for stopping by again. We're going to take the stream down. We're going to talk The TeamSpeak information is open. If anybody wanted to come jump in, it's still there on Wildstar Central, and I will find the link and put that in chat. So thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you folks hopefully for Late Night Dominion after the Town Hall. I need a nap. Y'all have a good night. Thank you.